Good afternoon, everybody. This is Patrick Dunn. I'm ITS at Oak Brook Middle School. Shelley is in another meeting right now, so she can't be with us to do the intro, so I'm getting the lucky pleasure of doing that. So thank you all for attending. We appreciate it. Today, we're going to be doing Microsoft Teams creating a quiz. So we've done how to do a forms. Now we're going to focus on actually making a quiz for students to take. So today, so our session description today, teachers will learn how to use Microsoft Forms to create digital quizzes and assessments. In addition, teachers will learn how to access responses and data from a Forms quiz. Now, even though this is focused on creating quizzes for the classrooms and students, all Dorchester 2 staff with a district email address will benefit from this session. Today, our lead presenter is Amy Rossi. So she'll be giving us most of the presentation. Our co-presenter today is Mark Meyer. Our producer again is Jen Fairburn, and our Q&A moderators are Callie Neal, Kristen Tyner, and Mary Push. So for the attendee experience, you do not need a microphone or webcam in order to attend this event. In fact, you won't be able to share any audio or video. Only the presenters will be able to share. You'll be able to use the Q&A feature on the right-hand side to ask questions. So as you ask questions, they'll either be published or answered, and you can see the response there. In order to get your certification credit, you don't have to do anything besides sign in and join the meeting. Your login, when you log in, identifies you and allows you to get tech and renewal credit. So today is a 1-hour session Within the 48 hours after the end of the session, you should get an email from ERO marking your attendance. So this live PD, just you being here, is automatically going to register you and have your attendance put in ERO for you. Like I said, you'll get 1 hour of technology proficiency and 1 hour of renewal credit. Make sure you stick around for the Q&A at the end if we have any more questions. And you will get it'll be done in ERO in about 48 hours. Don't forget to join the Dorchester District 2 online PD team by going through Teams and looking for the online PD team. There you can watch all these live recordings saved. Pretty soon, we're also going to release quizzes so that if you missed any of the earlier sessions, you'll be able to take a quiz and get credit for watching those online sessions. And you can enjoy it anytime, anywhere you have access to the online PD team. Remember, your internet connection has a big influence on the quality of the audio and video. So if you notice that things are dropping out and we're not addressing it as a group, it could be on your end. Make sure you also keep the live PD open. We've heard that if you go to other tabs on the side, the video will pause. You'll have to come back and click play again to continue the live event. Make sure you have a hardline internet connection if you can, or use a strong Wi-Fi signal. And today at the end of the session, we're going to have Amy Rossi pick a random number that'll give us a winner for our $10 gift card. And remember, if you attend all 3 sessions this week, you may earn a $25 gift card thanks to our sponsor, Canty. All right, so again, we're excited to have you here, and I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to Amy for her to present so that we can get moving on. Amy?
Thank you, Patrick. Share my screen with you. Okay, so as Patrick explained today, I am going to be showing you how to create a quiz in Microsoft Forms. So the first thing you need to do to access Microsoft Forms is you will go to your Office 365 account. And at the top, you're going to see all of your different apps. You are going to select Microsoft Forms. Now, if you were with us a couple of weeks ago, Marie showed you how to create a form in Microsoft Forms. Today, we're going to talk about how to create a quiz. Before we get started, it's important that you understand the difference between the two. So the biggest difference between the two is a form is going to be something that you are just using to collect information digitally. There are no correct answers. You do not assign point values to different questions. You could still do a multiple choice question, but there's not going to be a right or wrong answer. You want to think about forms as something you would use for surveys, possibly for parent communication. If you wanted to give your students an interest inventory, that would be a form. A quiz is going to be something that you would traditionally do as a paper and pencil test or quiz. Any type of assignment where you want to mark a correct answer or you want to award points to students. Now, it's important to understand the difference because they look very similar. I'm going to show you real quick what they look like when you click on them. And the problem is, and I know this from experience, is that if you create a quiz in Forms, there is no way to change that to a quiz. So when you are creating it, you really need to make sure that you are in the correct place. So if I click New Form, this is what I'm going to see. If I come back and I click New Quiz, I will see this. So they look very similar. So it's very important if you're creating a quiz to make sure that you start out in quiz. There's no way, to my knowledge, to transfer it over. You kind of have to start over. So I'm going to go ahead and show you the basics of creating a quiz. So the first thing you do whenever you create your quiz is you need to create a title. This is actually very important because unfortunately at this time, Microsoft Forms does not have a folder structure. If I go back to my Forms page, you can see that all of my forms are just on the same page. So the way you're going to find old forms or old quizzes is you'll have to search it, and you'll have to search using the title name. I suggest finding a system that works for you. Maybe you title your quiz using a standard, using the unit. If you're an elementary teacher and you teach multiple subjects, putting the subject at the front, something that allows you to easily locate it in the future. The great thing about creating a quiz in Microsoft Forms is that you can use it for years to come. You can edit it each year, make changes, but you're not reinventing the wheel. So go ahead and you want to title your quiz. I'm just going to call this Sample Science Quiz. And then you have a couple different options here. You can add a picture. So if you click picture, you can search on Bing and find a picture. This is going to be an astronomy quiz, so that is what I'm going to search for. And if you have this box checked, it is images that are tagged with Creative Commons license. This means you do not need to worry about the copyright for these particular photos. You also have the option of uploading a picture from your OneDrive or from your computer. So if you had a specific photo you wanted to use, maybe a diagram, you could upload from one of those. Today, I'm just going to pick one of these images and add it. So you can add a picture, you have your title, you can also add a description here. In addition, at the top, you have a couple different buttons. You have preview and then you have theme. So theme is just so you can change the color of your quiz. I did see where one teacher was using the different colors to distinguish what subject her quiz was, and that's how she organized them. So that's another idea. You can easily pick a different theme. Not sure why that image would not download. Let me try one more time. So you can see I have the picture here and my title. Okay. Once you've set that up, you're going to go ahead and start adding questions or adding sections to your test. So I'm going to preview all of these question types, and then I'm going to go through each of them individually. So your first is your typical multiple choice or select response type question. Here you're going to have a text question where your students would type in their answer. You're also going to have different types of questions that you might see more in surveys. So you have ratings, students could enter a date, they can rank things. These I would think would be great to maybe use at the end of an assessment as a student self-assessment. You also have the option to have students upload a file. And whenever I click on this arrow, I want to show you as we begin this, but button at the bottom. This allows me to create different sections on my quiz. I want you to think about sections like different pages. So when the students are taking the quiz, each section will be on a different page. This is very helpful if you are having students take a long quiz. For example, if you had a 30-question test, it might be overwhelming if students just had to scroll down and see all 30 questions on one page. If you break it into sections, it's going to break the quiz into different pages. So for this example, I am going to break my quiz into different types of questions. So section 1 is going to be multiple choice. And I'm going to show you all the ways I can make a multiple choice question. At the top of a section, you can also add a picture or a video. These two features will be shown in more detail during the advanced form features PD next week. You can also add descriptions or directions. So my section 1 is going to be my multiple choice. I'm going to go ahead and click Add New, and I'm going to type my first question. So it looks pretty self-explanatory. You have the question, an area for the question, and then your answer option. So I'm going to say, how many planets? So I can simply type in my question here, and then I can go through and add my different answer choices. Okay. Once you've typed your question and you have your answer choices, the way a quiz is different from a form is you would go in and actually select the correct answer. So to do that, you're going to hover next to it and you're going to click the check mark and it'll say correct answer. You also have to assign a point value to your question. So for this quiz that I am creating, it's a 10-question quiz, so each question will be worth 10 points. So I can easily just put 10 right here. Okay. You also have some other options over here. You have multiple answers, which I'll show in a minute. You also have required. If you check required, it will not let students submit their quiz until they answer that question. I think that this would be great to use with students at the beginning of the year when they are getting used to taking online assessments. As a former classroom teacher, I may take that away later in the year when I want them actually checking over their work. So that's just something that you know your kids and you know your students best and what they need. So you can either require them to answer it, so they cannot submit with a blank question, or you can choose to have them, double check their work. So that is an option that's available there. So I'm going to go ahead and hit Add New. I'm going to add another multiple choice question. You'll notice that because this question was assigned 10 points and it is in the same section, my second question automatically is assigned 10 points. I can change that if I want, but the great thing about this is it kind of makes it a little bit easier for you as the teacher when you're creating your assessment. But you can always change it if you would like. Now, typically when you are creating a forms quiz, you are not starting from scratch. You most likely have a quiz that you've used and you might have it in a Word document format. So the easiest thing to do would be to just copy and paste those questions over. I've found the best way to do that is I'm going to resize my screen, my internet browser, so that takes up half my screen. And then I want to pull up my test and put it on the other side. This allows me to see both screens at once and easily copy and paste my questions. So I'm just going to come over here. I'm going to use my shortcut keys, Control-C, come over here, Control-V. And you might have to do a little bit of formatting, but it's a lot easier than retyping the entire question. Now for the answer choices, you can go through and you can individually copy each answer choice over to your form. But an easier way to do this is you can select all of your answer choices at once. I'm going to hit Control-C, come over here, Control V, and it actually is going to put each answer choice on a different line. So that definitely is a time saver when you're not having to do each line individually. So you'd want to go ahead and select your correct answer. Now, you may have noticed when I copied and pasted, A, B, C, and D stayed on the side. This is also something that would be teacher preference. So if I go ahead and click Preview, it will show me what my students will see. And you'll notice on my first question, it's multiple choice, but it doesn't have A, B, C, and D listed. That is not an option in forms. So if you wanted your students to get used to seeing that format, you would need to actually put the letters at the beginning of your answer choice. Now, another option that you're given, so here's your regular multiple choice question. I have my correct answer, I have my 10 points. We've already talked about required. I can click these 3 dots. Something else I can do is I can shuffle the options. When I click shuffle the options, that means that each student will see the answers in a different order. So in my example here, where I left the A, B, C, and D, that would not work for me because this is what students would see. They would be all out of order. So if you are going to use that shuffle options feature, then you would definitely want to delete the letters. But just so you know, they're not there automatically if that's something you want your students to be used to seeing. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and make another multiple choice question, but this time I'm going to show you how to create a drop-down menu. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this question, and it simply says, which planet is closest to the sun? For this example, I'm going to type in the answers because I want to show you Microsoft Forms sometimes will come up with its own answer choices for you. That makes your life just a little bit easier. It does this for true, false questions, yes and no questions, things like planets, things that are more common. Those suggestions will pop up. So it just makes your life a little bit easier if you need to use that. So for this question, I'm going to make it a drop down. So I'm going to come down here again. This is where my options are going to be, my settings. So I already showed shuffle options, now drop down. What this does is when the students see this question, I would need to go select my correct answer and points. You always want to check that each time. When I go to student preview, I see I have a regular multiple choice question, another regular one, and then this one is going to be a drop-down menu. So that is another option that Forms gives you. Now, the next type of multiple choice question, which would be very common in a science class, is a question that involves a diagram. So I'm going to come over here. And here you can see I have a question, but I have a diagram I need my students to look at. The great thing about Forms is it's very easy to get a diagram or an image into your quiz. So I'm going to go ahead, copy that question, and then I would need to add the image. So because this image is coming from a document on my computer, I would first need to save the image. So what I'm going to do is hover over my image and I'm going to right click, save as picture. My suggestion would be if you were copying a quiz or a test that had several images, I would go through and save all of my different images first so that I wasn't going back and forth each time. So what I did is I just created a folder and I'm just going to save that picture. And I already saved it today, so yes, I'm going to replace it. So now I'm going to come over here. And then next to my question, I just select Insert Media, Insert Image, and I'm going to go to Upload because it is on my computer. It's not in my OneDrive. and I would go and find that particular folder. And it's simply going to add the image right next to my question. When you are first learning or creating forms, the most helpful part or option that you have is to do the student preview. So whenever I upload my image, I want to see what my students will see. I just click preview and I can scroll down and see the quiz exactly as they would on their device. So I'm looking right now, I can see, oh, I need to delete option 2 right there. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and check my correct answer. Again, double checking that my points are still remaining there. Okay. And then the final type of multiple choice question that you might want to add, that's commonly added in an assessment, would be a select all question. So where you have multiple different answers. So I'm going to copy and paste my question. Then I'm going to copy and paste my answer choices. Again, remember, you can do them all at one time. Okay. And I would just simply select multiple answers at the bottom. Then I'm going to come through and select all of my answers that would be correct. Okay. And I want to double check that it's still saying 10 points. Okay. So these are all the different options with multiple choice. You can do multiple answers, you can require it, you can shuffle options, and you can also, one thing I forgot to mention is you can also add a subtitle. So for this one, I'm going to say check all that apply, so that my students know that they need to check every answer. And you can see with a subtitle, it's just going to put it right below the question in italics. So now I'm going to go back, and now I'm going to move on, and I'm going to show you how to do text questions. So I'm going to create another section because I want my students' quiz to be broken up. So I'm going to call this section 2 short answer. And again, I could enter additional directions. I could enter a photo there too. I'm going to go ahead and click to add a text question here. So this question, I'm just going to say name. So this question does not require a long response from my students. So I would not need to click long answer right here. That text box would be enough for my kids to answer that question. When you do a short response text question, you are given the option of adding in the correct answers. If you add in the correct answers, the test will auto grade for you. So for a question like this, name 2 planets, I could probably list all 8 planets and have it auto grade for me. But I don't have to. I could also choose to just grade those questions as the teacher later on. So I can add the correct answer, or I can just leave it blank and know that I need to go back and I'll have to manually grade those. If I wanted to add in a question that requires a longer response, so this question, explain the difference between rotation and revolution. I know that that's going to require students to write more. I'm going to click long answer, and it's going to expand the box. When students are typing into an extended or long answer text box, it does limit them to 4,000 characters. When I looked that up today, that was about 500 words. So just keep in mind that there are limitations to it. They'll be limited to 500 words on the extended response question. On the short answer, when you don't make it a long answer, it actually also gives the students 4,000 characters, but the text box doesn't expand. So everything that they type, it would just be right here, and it would kind of just continue going. So anytime you think they're going to type more than a word or two, I would always just select long answer. Something that I forgot, because I created a new section, I actually need to go back and I need to add in my points. So it did not default that because I created a new section. So I need to add my points again. Okay. Now the next thing I'm going to show is some of my teachers were asking me, how do I do fill in the blank? And there's not a great way to do this on Microsoft Forms, but I found a way that kind of serves as a workaround, so something that'll work. So if you have a quiz and it has where you give the students a word bank and you want them to use those words to fill in different sentences, what you can do for your section description is you can actually put your word bank there and say, use the word bank below to fill in the blank. And I'll show you exactly what this looks like to the student. So in this description area, I can just put my word bank so that students can see it. And then I'm going to select a text question. So all of the planets revolve around me, and I know my correct answer for this is just going to be sun. I want that to auto grade for me because students have a word bank, so they should be able to come up with that word. Okay, I'm just going to add one more. Okay, and again, I can go ahead and add that correct answer because there's only going to be one. I would need to add the points in because it's not going to automatically add them since I started a new section. If I look at my preview, this is what my students would see. So on the first page, they have their 5 multiple choice. On the next page, they have 2 short answers. So this was section 1, this is section 2. And then on the third page, they're going to have their fill in the blank. So it kind of has the word bank at the top and then the questions below that. Okay, and that's what it looks like to students. So whenever you're in preview, you can also see what it looks like on a phone. And then you can always go back to where you are editing your quiz that you're creating. While you're creating your quiz, if you decide that you want to rearrange the order of your questions, you can simply use these arrows on the side. So I can move this question up, I can move it back down. So I don't have to copy and paste questions if I want to change the order that they're in. You can also delete here, and then this gives you the option to copy the question. This is useful if you're using the same type of questions over and over. Maybe it's a math problem and you're just changing the numbers. The final thing I'm going to show you on this sample quiz is how to do a file upload. So let's call this section 4 essay. I'm going to go ahead and add, maybe I had my students write a paper and I want them to upload it, and it's going to be the last 10 points on their science quiz. So I would come over here and click File Upload. It's going to tell me that a folder will be created in my OneDrive. I'm going to say OK. I'm going to say Upload. Okay. And then I can decide how many files they can upload. I can even change the file size. And again, I would need to make sure that I put my points there. Okay. Now I'm going to go ahead and show you the best way to double check your points is at the top. It's going to tell you how many points your quiz has. This is a great way to self-check because if you accidentally didn't put points on a question, that number is going to be not what you expected. So it's probably not going to be 100 points if you forgot one. So that's a great way to check and make sure that you have all of your questions there. Just to preview it one more time to see what that file upload looks like for students. Here are the short answer questions, fill in the blank. And then finally the file upload. So students could just upload their file here. Okay, that is one way that you can have students upload a file. Next week, we are going to have a PD on Teams assignments. And there is a better, what I think is a better way for students to upload files, but this is definitely one option. So after your students have taken your quiz, so you created your quiz, you gave your quiz to the students, and I will show you how to get the quiz to the students at the end. But after they have done that, this is what you're going to see for results. So I'm going to click on this quiz. This was one that I sent out to some of my colleagues, and they took it for me. So here are my questions. This is where I would edit. If I want to see their responses, I'm going to click responses over on the side. And I have a couple of different options here. So first, I have all of these great graphs that are going to show me how students did. So for example, on question 1, 4 out of 5 of my students got that correct. On question 2, only 2 of my students got that question correct. So this is a great thing that you can look at and you can go over it as a class. I like that it doesn't show names. You could pull this up for students if you wanted to review a question as a class. If you wanted to see, well, who missed that question? You can click more details. And it's going to give you the names of the students. And these are names of teachers. They are not students. To grade the short answer questions, you have 2 different options. You can click review answers, or you have to click review answers. And then you can either grade it by person. So I can go through and I can grade each student's quiz. So I can come down here and I can see all of Jessica's work. And I know that my final question was to write a paragraph, and I'm going to give her points for her paragraph. Okay, so I would simply just type that in there. I can hit review next, and it's going to take me to the next student. Another option that you have, so that's grading by student, is you can actually grade it by question too. So if you give a test and the only question that you need to grade as the teacher is, let's say the last question was extended response, you can come to your questions, go down to that particular question, and you can grade all of your students at the same time. So you can come in right here. You can see I've already graded her, so she has her 10 points, and you can give your students the points that they earned, okay? And as soon as you type it in, it's going to save that. You can even leave feedback for your students to read. And then again, you would just review next in this window is going to take you to the next question. So when you're looking at your results, you can grade it by person or by question. When you click back, you would hit post scores, and that would send the quiz to your students. And we'll kind of talk a little bit about that today and then more about that next week. There is one important thing that I forgot to mention. So I'm going to go back to my sample quiz. So in my sample quiz, I have my options at the top. I have my preview and my theme. I have share. And then over here, I have more settings. If I click on these 3 dots, I want to open up settings. This is very important too. So this first one, show results automatically, options for a quiz. If you are giving a multiple choice test where it all is graded on the computer automatically, you can turn this on. Then as soon as students submit their quiz, they can see what they made on it. Now, if you have extended response or text questions on your quiz that you have to go grade manually, if you leave this on, it will tell the students that they got those questions incorrect. So my suggestion is that if you have a quiz that has a lot of extended response or short answer, is that you turn this off until you're able to actually grade it. Because otherwise a student, maybe you're straight A student took a 10-question test, let's say 5 of the questions are short answer, it's going to show that student that they had a 50%, even though more than likely they did much better than that. It just automatically defaults to them having no points until you go and grade each question. So that's just something to keep in mind. You can turn this on and off. You'd want it to be only people in my organization. You're most likely only going to be giving quizzes to students in your class in DD2. You want to record a name, and then you most likely only want 1 response per person. There's also some more advanced features down here that you can choose to use. You can customize the message they see at the end. You could get an email every time someone submits their quiz to you. Okay, so those are the important settings when you are assigning a quiz. So this would be the most important one, just deciding if you want them to see the result or if you want them to only have the results once you've graded it. Now, to share this quiz with students and with your colleagues, the best thing about forms is that you can create a quiz and you can share it with your colleagues amongst your grade level or your department. If I click share here, this first link, this is to collect responses. So this is what I would post for my students if I wanted them to take this quiz. You could take this link and post it in Clever. You could also post it in Teams. In a minute, I'll show you how to assign it as an assignment in Teams. The top is for students. These 2 bottom links are how you would share this quiz with your colleagues. Share as a template allows your colleagues to make a copy of the quiz. It gives them a duplicate, so they can make a copy of your quiz. They can make changes for their classroom to meet their students' needs, and it does not change your quiz. So you're basically just sharing it with them, and then whatever changes they make, you do not see those. If you share to collaborate, then that is going to make a copy that becomes a live form, and any changes they make to it would also show up on yours. So the difference between these 2 just depends on what you're using it for. If you want to work on a quiz with a colleague, you would use share to collaborate. If you just want to give them a copy of what you've already made, save them some time, you would share as a template. Okay. So now I'm going to show you the best way to give your students a quiz. I'm going to go into Teams. Okay. And I'm going to use my Eagle Nest team right now. This will be gone over in depth next week. This is just a quick little preview. So you're going to go to assignments. It's taking a minute to load. And down here you would hit create and you're going to click quiz. When you select quiz, you're going to notice that the form that you just created or the quiz you just created is going to show up here. You can also search if you need to find it. That is another reason why the naming is so important. So I'm going to go ahead and click my quiz that I made today. Okay, it's going to automatically give it the same title as my quiz. I can change that. Again, this will be gone over in depth next week. This is just a quick preview. And then you can assign it to your student, set a due date. I'm just going to go ahead and click assign. Okay. And then this is what your students are going to see. When they log in to their teams, it's going to pop up as an assignment for them. And they're going to see sample science quiz. They're going to click here. And they will see exactly, I'm not sure that error message is right there, but they will see exactly what you saw when you were creating the quiz in Forms. So they can take that quiz right here in Teams. Once they have finished it, if you wanted to go in and grade it, it's going to look the same as what I showed you in Teams, or I'm sorry, in Forms earlier. So here's the test that was already taken. I have 2 different options here. It's just a matter of preference. I can hit, so the ES facilitator took this quiz, I can click Open in Forms. And I can grade it here if I wanted to. So I could go in and grade this final paragraph, or I can simply click on that student's name and I get the exact same view, but I stay in Teams. So it's just one less step. It's up to you. And you're just going to grade it the exact same way as before. So for example, for this one, I needed to give them points for this final question. I'm going to hit review next. And it's being a little bit slow. So now it's showing that it's turned in. And it's not saving my grade there, but okay. Then, I'm sorry, after I've graded it, then I would hit return and I would send it to my student. Now my student would be able to see their grade. And that is what I have for creating quizzes in Microsoft Forms.
Well, great, Amy. Thank you very much for sharing with us. We do have a few comments of kind of going through there. Thank you guys for hanging in with us. So, Amy, one of the questions that we had come up was, could you show one more time how to create sections in the quiz? I think that was kind of at the very beginning, and it's important to see people. Just show us one more time how to create a section.
Yes, absolutely. So I'm going to go ahead and create a new quiz. And I'm just going to title it. All I do is I click add new, like I am adding another question, but I'm going to go to the down arrow and then a new section is here at the bottom. And something I'm not sure if I mentioned it before, but where it says section 1 right here, the students don't see that. So if I go ahead and do, I'm just going to write random numbers so you can see. If I hit preview, the students only see what I title that section. So just something to note.
All right, great. So let's say I've made an entire quiz and I have sections. I have multiple choice sections. I have true false sections. What if I decide at the last minute, you know what? I want true false to be first. I want to take this whole section and move it first. I know you showed us earlier how to move questions, but can you move entire sections?
Yes, you can. And I forgot to show that earlier. So if I decided on this quiz I created, I want section 2 to be at the top, I can just hit move section and it's going to allow me to move it up or move it down wherever I want it to be. So obviously, because I titled mine by section, I would need to change that, but you can easily change the order of your quiz.
Awesome. We had another question came up a couple times that teacher wanted to know, when you create a quiz, can the students immediately see the questions that they missed, but not necessarily the correct answer?
I would actually need to look. I'm not sure. I don't know if one of you knows the answer to that question. That would need to be something I would have to test out. I'm not sure.
I'm not sure.
Can you repeat the question?
A teacher asked if there was a way to give a student a quiz, and when they submit it, they can see the question that they missed, but not necessarily the correct answer.
I believe if you want students to be able to see their scores, as soon as they submit, you have to turn it on and they see everything right and wrong. I believe, I don't know if you showed this or not, Amy, but if you go to the responses tab when people have submitted quizzes, so if you don't return their scores, if you uncheck where they get their answers when they're done, here in this section, you can post scores. So that button next to review answers, And when you post scores, students can then go back to the quiz using the same link and see their score and what they got wrong, right and wrong, in the future when you decide. So that post scores button lets you decide when they see their scores, not right away after the quiz.
Mhm. And another thing in this section that I forgot to mention in responses, if you had a student and you wanted to delete their score, you can come over here to review. You have to click review answers, and then you could just select that student, hit the 3 dots, and you can hit delete response. And that allows you to delete just that student's response to the test. And you also have the option to print the response. So if you needed to print it to send it home with a parent, or if you wanted the student to do it on paper, you could print and you can see all their responses, which is also helpful.
We did just have another question pop up about, can you shuffle the questions? I believe you showed how to shuffle the answer choices. Can you shuffle the questions as well?
So I believe if you're shuffling the questions, go back here. I'm going to, on this test, I believe for questions to be shuffled, I think that you can only have one section. So for this quiz right here, I have 2 or 3 sections. It will not allow me to shuffle the questions. Let me come back over here and find one. But I think if I come to settings over here, since this test or quiz only has one section, then I can shuffle the questions. So it depends on if you have sections or not.
Okay,
thank you. Mark, do we have any more questions?
Yeah, we have a few more to go through. Thank you so much, Amy. This is really helpful, I know, as a classroom teacher to be able to see how to do this. One thing, multiple answer questions. Those are all or nothing, right? So if I have a select the 3 that apply and Patrick only selects 2, he gets the question wrong, right? There is no partial credit.
Yes, there is no partial credit, but as a teacher, you can go in and you can give partial credit. So I'm going to go back to the vocabulary test I showed earlier. I'm going to go to responses, and I'm going to click review answers. And I'm going to use the test that I took. And on this quiz, what I did was I had a word bank and I misspelled the word responsibility. So you could do this for a multi-select also, same thing. If I decided, well, I'm going to give that student half credit, I can just go in and change that 0 to a 4, and what you put overrides it. So for a multi-select question, you would do the same thing. You could scroll down to that question, decide if you wanted to give students partial credit, and do that. There's just no way to give them partial credit automatically.
Yeah, that's great to know. You can go back on the back end, especially for spelling or capitalization or anything like that. Also, when you were making the quiz and you were creating your answers, there was a little comment option next to the answer choice. Can you show what that does?
Yes. Let me go to. So for the comment option, if you wanted to write students a comment, so great job, you could put the comment there. And I believe whenever they would see the comment when they had their test returned to them.
All right, great. This is kind of it's a big one. It's important to me as a former English teacher. How would I add a passage? Like if I wanted to add an entire passage, the student reads the passage and then it has multiple questions associated with it. How could I do that on a quiz?
I'm not sure if I'm not completely sure of the answer to that. I do not know what the limit is for, I would add the passage in maybe for the section. But I don't think there's a really great way to add a passage on forms. I do know there are a couple limitations, and I think that's one of them, because there's no way, if I click here, I can insert a image or a video, but there's no way for me to upload like a PDF or a document that would have a reading passage on it. Another limitation of forms that I did not mention earlier is that there's no way for students to save their work. To my knowledge, once they start the quiz, they have to finish it. There's no way for them to like log back in like on Unified Classroom.
Got it. We'll have to investigate the passage thing a little bit further and dig down deeper into that. I did appreciate the share feature, how you can create a quiz. If you've created a great quiz and you just want to share that with your fellow teachers, I thought that was a really kind of neat feature of it, where their student responses are not going to intermingle with your student responses.
Yes, whenever you do the duplicate there. And I think
we did have one final question about the auto grading part. Whenever you went back into Teams, can you edit that automatic grade when you're grading it through Teams?
Yes, you should be able to. So if I click on this quiz, I can come through here and I can decide, okay, I want to give that student, I don't know, they misspelled the word and they had a word bank. So maybe I give them partial credit. So it should also update here just like it would. And here's another one where it was a typo. And I also have the ability, it works exactly the same in Teams as it does on Forms.
Got it. Works exactly the same.
And if you notice now, it shows that that test is graded and it's returned to my student.
Perfect. Well, I'm not seeing any further questions, Amy. Again, thank you so much for taking us through how to make those forms and simple quizzes. Patrick, I'm going to turn it over to you and you can kind of give us a preview of what's coming, and I think we have a winner.
We don't quite have a winner yet, but Amy will be picking our winner for everyone right now, live for everyone. So I went ahead and took over. Before we jump to that, Amy, so you can take a little breath, a little drink if you need to. So today was our Microsoft Forms Basics creating a quiz session. Next week, we start off with managing assignments. So now that you've learned how to make a quiz, come back on Tuesday next week, 5/12 at 3 o'clock. And you'll learn how to manage an assignment. So how to create an assignment, and you can attach one of these forms just like Amy showed you at the end, but they're going to go into a lot more detail about how to create those assignments, what to do with it. We're also going to talk about how to do the PowerSchool sync on Wednesday. So yes, any assignment you put in Teams, the grade will sync directly over into PowerSchool if you turn that on. So we'll talk about how that works and what other things you kind of need to do to make it work 100% correct. And then on Thursday, we'll be talking about rubrics and feedback built into Microsoft Teams. Microsoft likes to call it the feedback loop. So you can have students turn in papers, give them feedback, they edit, they turn it back in again. So it's a whole loop of constant giving students feedback and getting them to improve their work straight through Microsoft Teams. So Amy, I pulled our attendee report for everyone who joined in. We had 491 attendees today. So I need you to give me a number between 1 and 491. Your choice, Amy.
Let's do 223.
223. That's a lot of scrolling I've got to do. Here we go. 223. It looks like it is a Miss Suzanne Burke. Suzanne Burke is our winner today. Congratulations to her. We'll be getting a $10 Amazon gift card that'll be sent to you soon from Dorchester District 2. And remember, if you were here all 3 days this week, we'll do another drawing over the weekend to find out who's going to win the $25 gift card, and that'll be announced at our Tuesday session when we start next week doing managing assignments. So thank you all for joining. We appreciate you coming every day, and we hope you all have a wonderful weekend.